All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday. This podcast will be 90% on baseball and baseball betting strategies, but the first 10% here is going to be on UConn last night because thank God they played the way. First of all, they didn't even play great. They played solid. They played the way they typically play, but it wasn't necessarily an A game from them. But they dominated that game, and frankly, I needed them to dominate the game the way I was all over UConn. First of all, when you look at the coaching, it's a complete mismatch. I don't know how many coaches can keep up with Hurley with UConn right now, but there's two things that just jumped out at you if you're watching the game. First is, and I told you they were going to apply this ball pressure that is going to frustrate Purdue and wear them out. Like NC State wore them out. NC State just couldn't make a freaking shot. The most frustrating game, by the way, watching that second half. Yeah, I don't care about being right or wrong. When I know I'm right, it doesn't matter. That's just how it is. Like I'm wrong all the time. Apologize. It took me until about being 25 to get there, but past 10 years, I have no problem being wrong, saying sorry. Uh, Perfect fiance. Like she's taught me a tremendous amount. It was hard for me to say sorry a long time in my life, but so I have no problem being wrong. No problem whatsoever. It is what it is, especially about basketball because I know basketball. So it's if I get something wrong, it is Illinois, Iowa State, Carolina, Alabama. It's like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong with the outcome. But if the game's going to play out completely different the way I said, then that's just not going to happen. I watch too much basketball. I understand basketball on too high of a level. And NC State is 39-33. NC State couldn't hit a shot in the second half because McConnell gets hurt and they had a short bench. So the fallacy on my end as a gambling standpoint is I don't have to bet the game. But from analyzing the game, it went exactly the way I thought because Purdue's guards are weak, especially a little point guard. He thinks he's better than he is. Good ball player, but he thinks he's better than he is. And it's reflective on the way he plays. And they get exhausted. He can't handle the ball. Everything requires a pick and roll. Edey can't take one possession off. If Edey doesn't make all those shots to start the game, UConn's going to blow him out in the first half. So he keeps them in it, and then they get worn out. And that's so that's the first thing you notice when you're watching the game is Hurley for UConn is screaming. And he literally got a foul. I've never seen that before. He actually pushed Cam Spencer in the second half, like actually touched him, which I've never seen in a college game before because you can't touch your own player. But he was and that was on offense. But the point was he wanted be aggressive. Like the whole mindset of Connecticut and why I knew they would just, smother Purdue is they're just going to press up on those guards, wear them out. So they started doing that from the beginning, and that eventually wore them out in the second half. And then secondly, what UConn does is they run an offense almost like it's completely out of style now, right? Where they're running all this action on the weak side. They actually have a playbook of plays where they're going to in the middle of the game where you're like, wow, that was a pick and roll with their guards. Like that came out of nowhere. The Castle kid is fantastic. Whereas every other team is running what Purdue's offense is, essentially high pick and roll, high pick and roll, high pick and roll. Yeah, they throw the ball in the Edey, which is the exception, because Purdue can actually throw the ball inside. But if you watch NBA, college basketball, hell, you watch high school basketball on in a lot of situations, it's let's get the ball to the best player. Who's the point guard? He's got the ball. Let's bring the big guy out. Let's run a pick and roll. And it's just boring. In a lot of ways, it's unsophisticated. And if you have the right coach and the right personnel on defense, you'll attack it. And that's what UConn did. UConn got into some foul trouble, but they were able to, pinch some of these pick and rolls and hedge some of them and then drop them. You can't just run the pick and roll offense nonstop, unless you have an elite guard, which Purdue just doesn't have. So UConn's running all this other action, which makes it really hard for the defense to prepare for. I think I would have maybe felt differently about Purdue's chances if they would have had a whole week to prepare. And this was the first game in the Final Four because UConn's offense, you can't just prepare for it in a day. That's why in the second half, they just wear you out. It's nonstop motion. So, all right, I'll shut up about UConn because I could do this all day. Let's go to baseball. Just give me half a second here. Wow, great. All right, let's see. So, made the decision this morning. I think what makes the most sense for me personally, as far as giving out advice for baseball season, is Orioles advice every single day. Because I'm paying attention every single day, and I'm not paying attention to every other team every day. So just gonna start with that. I first of all, I said it yesterday. I want to, get guys. I want guys on here to give out picks. I totally, that's the game plan, but I'm not going to rush it. And I got to make sure I get the right people on here. And in the meantime, now that there's no more college basketball, what I'm going to be able to offer is Orioles advice because I'm following it every day. I understand gambling on such a high level that I can offer Orioles advice. I can, period. Like that's something I feel comfortable with every day. I don't need, whatever my recommendation is, I'll feel very confident about it. But the rest of the league, I just am not paying enough attention and obsessing over it the way I obsess over our Orioles in order to feel as confident as I want to feel when I'm giving out games. Like that's just not what the criteria of bringing people on, and that's the lesson I learned when I ran the business to begin with. Is if you're gonna look at a couple of different metrics, or you think there's a trend or two, and it's like that's your reasoning for picking a game, it just is not going to work. And with the juice, you eventually lose. Everybody's going to go on streaks. If you're going to bet tons of games, like that's just the reality. It is. I don't subscribe to any betting strategy that doesn't revolve around watching the game and being fully immersed with the team. Now, there's something to be said that if you're emotional about the team, which of course I am about the Orioles, that your advice is going to be biased, and I acknowledge that, right? That's not going to be a secret. But you take that with a grain of salt, right? Like that'll be my Orioles advice coming from Ryan, the super Orioles fan, and that's in that context. So I say that to say that when you're looking for Orioles advice, yeah, of course I want you to listen to me. And there's other great, I mean, there's so much great Orioles content. But yeah, you'd be way better off if you take the Orioles content folks and you mix that with the Red Sox content folks and say, hey, how are they looking at the series? How are they looking at the game? What are some things that maybe Orioles folks aren't thinking about that Red Sox folks are? How do I get my information? So if you're willing to do that and you have the time to do that, then I advise you gamble as much as you want, as often as you want, right? If you want to make it a full-time job, or if you want to pick one team and you want to follow that team, then like that's totally fine. Like, but most of us don't have the time to do that. So instead, it feels like people that are betting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games a day, it's just a guessing thing, right? You don't have the time to be able to analyze all the different aspects of a game. And yeah, you'll get some right, you'll get some wrong, but it's not really a reflection of your sports opinion because it's gambling. So many different things can happen. And what I learned, from doing this as long as I have, but especially the past year, is the only strategy that's ever going to work. Like the only strategy that I'm ever convinced of that will work, that I'm only willing to listen to, is I'm an expert on the game. I'm watching the game, I'm studying the game, I'm getting opinions from other people, and now I've enough time to make a sizable wager on the game. If you're not going to do that, then it just goes into the entertainment box, because then it's a whole different conversation. If you're just betting for entertainment and it's $10 here, you want to do some parlays and it's not a big deal to you, you don't have to do anything I'm talking about, right? Like, because at that point, who cares? But that's also the mindset of I'm going to the blackjack table with X amount of dollars and I'm planning on losing it. So if you want to put sports betting in the entertainment category and plan on losing it, then put not much thought into it. Do your random parlays, go with gut feelings, look at line movement or public money or things that make you feel like you have an edge when it honestly makes no sense. Because I'm going to get into the public money to end the conversation. I really want to drive that point home. But if you're not going to study the games the way I'm about to, or the way I've been and the way I'll continue to study these Oriole games, then you shouldn't feel confident betting a large amount of money. So then the last point I want to make on the Orioles is I'm not actually going to be betting these games because I will be way too emotional on the Orioles. There's no other way about it. So my advice will always be, my advice, but I also want to be transparent about my gambling because I am not betting baseball regular season. I think it was 5 or 6 bets before the season, half of them on the Orioles. I think it was like Orioles East Division wins. And then what was the other 3? Phillies to not make the Phillies under wins. Mets to make the playoffs and Giants to make the playoffs, and the Pirates actually to win the division at really crazy odds. So looking decent, obviously. But that's it. So I have plenty of things to root for without I cannot bet $50 on the game. I think I talked about this when I was writing or during the pod the other time. Like I have the fear of missing out of I should have bet more money on the games. So when it's time for me to bet, like I have bet, and it's not to brag or to whatever. It's just I'm running this business, and the best stories are going to be my own stories. I've bet $10,000, 15. Like I've actually bet over $25,000 in cash at casinos. Like this is there's no stories that anybody could tell me that I haven't heard. I used to live in Los Angeles. I made that drive from LA to Vegas no short of 200, 300 times. Like there's a reason that I'm passionate about trying to find a way to help people enjoy betting on sports and be reasonable about the expectations. So anyway, back to my focus here as far as giving out the Orioles advice, giving out the games, simply just with the Orioles and having my own whatever betting fix by having these future bets instead of betting every day. And my advice to you guys is if you're doing it for entertainment, it's a separate conversation. But if you're saying, hey, I would like to see if I can make some money doing this, like what are some actual betting strategies? I would break it down to two simple strategies. The first one is you have to study either a specific player or a specific team. So that goes in one category. If you want to handicap a pitcher or a hitter and bet their props, that's totally a great strategy to do because that takes way less time and effort, especially if you're doing a pitcher. You can watch us, you can watch them, you can go to YouTube and they can speed it up for you. You can see every pitch, every at bat. There's so many great content, folks. So if you want to just do that, totally get it. If you want to do Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Juan Soto, Aaron, you want to just pick a player and say, you know what? I like watching this guy. I have a strong opinion of him. I think my opinion is a little different than what the norm is. So maybe I'm getting better value. Like maybe you're higher on a player than most people are in the gambling public, or maybe you're lower on a player. So you feel like that's a good strategy. Or you go with a team. Now the team's going to take more work than the player, but frankly, it might be more fun to just bet the team, right? Like instead of just obsessing over one player. And my advice is don't pick a team that you have any emotion about. So if I was actually going to gamble, right, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to bet $500 every single game on one baseball team, whether to win, lose, they're over unders, but what's the one team I'm going to follow? I'd have to pick a National League team that I had no feelings about. So I don't know, the Marlins, the Reds, Padres, like somebody that's not affiliated with the Orioles, didn't cost me money one day. I don't have some random girlfriend that lives there, like something that is completely ex-girlfriend that should make that clear. Jesus Christ. Anyway, great. This is what happens when I have nobody to talk to. I get no filter, so who knows what's going to happen over the next few months. But anyway, as I was saying, pick a team that you're not emotional about. They have no feelings, like nothing, whatever, no feelings. And then study that team and say, hey, I'll bet them to win, lose. I don't care if they win 100 games or lose 50 games. I don't care. So I can actually handicap them. That's one strategy. Pick a player, pick a team. The second strategy is you have to just do the first 5 innings. If you say, you know what, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't want to just pick the freaking Cincinnati Reds to follow. Like that seems like a job. I don't want to do it. I want to bet actual games. I don't know. Might want to bet this team. I might want to bet that team. My advice would be if you got to put, an hour, 2 hours, like at least aside before you're going to make a sizable wager, because it's going to take time, especially if you're not following it religiously every day. But if you see a pitching matchup, if the pitching matchup to you is an obvious these starters suck, or an obvious these starters are awesome, then you bet the total for the first 5 innings, or you bet the team for the first 5 innings, right? Like bet the first 5 innings. Do not handicap inning 6 through 9, because especially for folks my age and older, you're just going to yell at the TV and be like, why can't he go back in the game? He's only throwing 84 pitches. And then some random schmuck comes in from the bullpen and we lose the game. And you're not going to have a strong enough opinion on a team's bullpen unless you are obsessing over this every single day to know who's available, And that takes a ton of work. Then you got to figure out the potential matchups from the bullpen versus the other hitters on the other team. So my advice is just don't handicap the game. Just do the first 5 innings where you can control as many variables as possible. And the Orioles today is a perfect example. As much as we want the Orioles to win, and it's the weakness so far has been, hey, what's the back of the bullpen look like? It's a little shaky. And if it's a 1-run game in Boston today, it's gonna be nice and loud. And I don't know, maybe you want the Orioles to win. You want to speak that into existence, but from a gambling standpoint, Burns is going to go 5 innings and shut them down. Like that's your premise for taking the Orioles to begin with, right? Like your premise isn't, I don't know how Burns is going to pitch today. It's like, no, that's my premise. So just leave it at that. And if the juice is up 5 or 10 points, eat it. Like eat the juice if you like your bet to a reasonable amount. And I think that'll be more for like an individual basis, is because I don't like telling certain people, hey, you can't bet a minus 190 favorite, because it depends on what your bankroll is. But generally speaking, it's like I stay away from anything minus 140 or higher. That's usually where it's like I hate paying more juice than that in baseball. All right, so I think that's pretty good for baseball for today. I wanted to wrap it up though with the public money stuff, because I've said this before, and I hope this comes off as nicely as I possibly can, because calling somebody stupid, like I don't know how you nicely call somebody stupid, but this is how I feel. If you think there's a such thing as public money, then like there's no other nice way for me to say it's just a really stupid way of thinking. Because as soon as you say, and I will elaborate on this on future podcasts, and if anybody wants to challenge me on it, please. I've had this conversation more times than not. I've had way too much experience to know that what I'm saying is the 100% truth. And I'm passionate about it because all it is a marketing term to use to confuse people and make betting way more complicated, and frankly, a way to sell picks and a way to justify when you lose, which is, hey, the betting public is going this way, but the sharp money is going this way. Smart money over here, dumb money over here. Public money over here, private money over here. So you ask yourself, well, who are the sharps in sports betting? Who are these people when you hear references to this is where the public money is going? Nobody ever has a good answer, because people that you would really be like, wow, that guy's considered a sharp. Be like, there's no way he's considered. Well, who called him a sharp? He called himself a sharp. And then people in the industry call each other sharps. And then, hey, I'm a sharp bettor. And what the hell does that even mean? It is an old school term that was used when you could only go to Las Vegas to bet on sports. And you would have certain people that would be considered, I guess, sharp sports bettors. And you knew who they were, or they might have some runners and people are connected. So there's old school, like, that's way before my time. Like, this is a joke. I can't even take this seriously, because when people say, hey, this is where all the money's going, the sharp money's over here, but the public money's over there, they're never able to identify who the hell they're talking about. It's just something that companies put out because they need content, and it sounds good. It sounds like, hey, I know there's sharp styles of betting. There are ways to look at lines, and that might be a sharp way of looking at it. Sure. Like that, if you want to use that specific term, sharp, great. But to say there's sharp bettors out there, and then it is just the most goofy thing in the world. So when people are saying, hey, this is where the public money is going, this amount of betting slips are on one team, but the money is going over here. First of all, there's no proof of any of this. Like the companies that put that out there, they don't have to be accountable for being accurate on that. Like that's just something they're putting out there, number one. So why are they putting it out there? Maybe to influence wagers, wouldn't shock me. But these companies have to report things, right? They pay taxes, they're publicly traded companies, these corporations, they have to report. So they do not have to report in real time 3-4 hours before the game where public money or where the percentage of the slips are going. Like that is, so wherever you're getting that information from, especially if it's from a sports book, that would be a joke to take that seriously. And then you can't identify who the sharp people are because they're goofballs in the industry. Like I've worked with them. I've worked with a bunch of them. And that's the whole marketing thing. Like that's how this whole company got started, is because I worked in the industry full of sharks, of people that sold their sports betting picks for money. Like that was their mode of operandi. And when you can't win on a consistent basis, which is really hard to do, and hell, I'm in the process of finding people that can find one sport they can win at. But when someone is marketing that they're great at sports betting, it's like they better have some sales behind it to explain away why they're losing. And the first reason, hey, I was on the sharp side of it. What, the sharp side of what? Well, I lost the game, but I was on the right side of it. You know, the public was over here, the public doesn't win, and blah. It is BS in the first degree. It is just designed to give you an excuse of why you lost. And after spending years in the industry, I couldn't, it was amazing to me. Like I'm telling you, the stories I could tell would be absolutely just amazing. So when I started this company, we started the same way, just selling sports picks for money, because I was told 60% is a realistic thing to do. And it's not. So that's why this whole company has changed. It's evolved, not because I wanted it to, but because when you're going to sell the idea that you're going to win at that high of a rate, you need to start having excuses when you don't. And that's what was happening. Like you have to explain it away, because it's not that you don't know sports. It's not that you're not a good sports bettor. That's not something that people want to acknowledge. So what I've realized, and what this company is going to be, and I didn't know rant was going to go this long, but hey, here we are. So this company is going to be transparent about, hey, if you win 50% of the time, right? If you go 50 and 50, you go 500 and 500. That is what is supposed to happen. You do anything above that, we're talking in the probability range in that 45 to 55 win percentage. And if somebody's going to win at 46% or 53% or 54%, there's some luck involved. That's great. There's a ton of variance. You're still a net loser. You got to get up to that 57, 58% range to handle the juice, assuming you're just doing regular betting, in order to begin to be somewhat, to just not be losing, right? To be a little bit profitable. So when you talk about actually being profitable betting on sports, you're looking at somebody that can consistently win 60% or higher over a course of a long period of time, to then remove the idea that they're just getting lucky. Because everybody, I promise you, and if you start following people because they tell you they went 7-1 the night before, or like they will tell you when they win, and they most likely won't tell you when they lose. That's how most of the industry is. And then the people that are telling you that they lose, they always have a good reason behind it. It was never their fault, right? It was never their lack of opinion. And that's why I say, you know what? If someone's going to come on here and give out games, we're going to obsess over the actual game itself. Because you can get the game wrong, but if you don't have a firm, solid opinion on what you're betting on, then you're not helping the audience. Because what I want you guys to take away from whoever I bring on is, I like that guy. I like when he talks about this. That made me think about that. Not Ryan brought on Bob, and Bob said to bet the Capitals tonight. So boom, I'm betting the Capitals. Like that is not what this company is going to be. So I know I'm threading the needle by having picks on here and showing records and having people that have confidence about their picks while telling you to do your own work. But that's what I believe in. So that's what we're going to do. And please, for the love of God, if somebody wants to challenge me on this public money crap and show me the sharp bettors, or start telling me that they're in the shadows somewhere and we know, but it is just for, do your work. Anybody that takes the shortcut, sports betting, life in general, it never works out. So if you want to bet on sports at a high, volume, as far as money is concerned, money that actually matters to you, got to be willing to do the work. So hopefully my Orioles advice will inspire some sort of wins here along the way. But it'll be therapeutic for me, frankly, to type out what I think, knowing I am not allowed to bet on the Orioles. I just got to root for them to win every single game. And if I don't like them to win the game, I will never, ever, ever, ever say, hey, bet the other team. It'll just be nicely worded that I don't like the value. and we'll find prop bets and things I like. If I say it's not going to be nonstop, I just like the Orioles today. I like the Orioles today. I'll always like the Orioles, but as far as a value, that's the main thing. And then I'll end on this note. Geez, the game's going to start soon. So, but yeah, Burns today, and what I wrote in the Telegram is I think it'll be minus 180 in a couple months. Like baseball is a weird sport. I don't think the Red Sox are that good, and I think we're fantastic. So I think you're getting great value. The series was minus 110. So that's great. But the Orioles might be a slight underdog tomorrow. Well, they probably will with Irvin. And then with Grayson, we'll see what that line looks like. So, all right, I keep going forever, but let's root the Orioles in and appreciate everybody. And yeah, we'll do master stuff tomorrow, get you guys ready for the weekend. And yeah, all right, everybody have a good day. See ya.